George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
George, there's a lot of news that the Fed is getting a lot of pressure from other countries to slow down the increase of rates, or it's going to cause a liquidity crisis in the bond market. What do I care? Why does it matter for me? Well, let me go through an example here, and I'll let you decide whether you think that it matters to you. So thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson. And I think one of the easiest ways I would know how to relate this is to instead of talking about bonds, let's just talk about houses. And in this example, we're going to use just an investor, let's just say somebody that has $1 million that they can invest into a real estate asset. And whether that's commercial, residential, or contract, just whatever it is, we're just going to use some simple terms here, and we're just going to call them, if you want to call them a house for right now, let's just call it a house. And I'm going to show you how this works. And thank goodness this is very, very difficult to do in today's market. But there was a time, like say back in 2006, 2005, where you could do this in the real estate market, and it's probably a good thing that we can't, but let me show you what you still can do and what has been happening in some of the international bond funds around the world. So let's just use an example where we've got $1 million to put into a house, and that asset, we're going to pay cash for the asset, and the asset's going to generate a 5% annual rate of return. It's going to give us $50,000 a year. Very predictable. The fluctuation, if the price of the asset fluctuates a little bit, we're still going to get our 5%. That's what the contracted interest rate is on that. And it's very stable and very predictable, but it's not very sexy. So what happens when there's cheap money out there? And what we've had for a long time, almost the past 10 years, prior to a year ago when the Fed started raising rates, there was money that was so cheap, people just say, well, hey, you're stupid not to go and borrow the money because it's almost free. Well, almost has some very important quotation marks around it, and I'm going to show you why it does. So what if instead of deciding to go and buy one asset with $1 million, what if you could borrow money at 3% and finance 90% of the purchase? So now instead of getting one asset that's earning 5% that you paid cash for, now you're going to own 10 homes, okay? And here's what you've got. You've got each home now, okay, where you put down 10% or $100,000, it's still going to generate the $50,000. And your debt service, well, hey, if you can borrow that money at 3%, well, on $900,000, that's only $27,000 annually. That's your cost to service the debt. But your asset is making more money than what it needs to, so you have a net $23,000 in cash flow, but now instead of having one asset, you have 10, okay? Because you went and did this transaction 10 times, okay? So now, off of your same $1 million, instead of making $50,000, you're now making $230,000. 23% is a much more attractive rate of return, but what happens if those borrowing costs increase? Well, let's see what happens here. Rates have actually gone up, short-term rates have gone up, they've more than doubled, okay? But let's just use 6% as an example here. So what if your cost of servicing that debt goes from 3% to 6%? Well, guess what? The amount of money that you owe, this is fixed. This does not go away. This isn't going to go up, it's not going to go down, okay? Because that's a loan. The cost to service the debt now is $54,000 a year, which means that instead of making $23,000 on each home, you are now losing $4,000 on each home. And how many times are you doing that? You're doing that times 10, okay? So instead of making $50,000, which was the safe bet, you went for the leveraged bet to make $230,000. But rates doubled on you, they went up, and you are now losing $40,000 annually on your investment. But wait, it gets worse. Okay, so what happens when interest rates go up? Okay, the price of the asset of the bond goes down. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the interest rates have gone up 6%. So we're going to still call this a house, but it's acting like a bond. which means that the value of the asset is now no longer $1 million, it's $900,000. And you go, wow, so I'm losing money on this. I want to get rid of this thing. I want to sell these things off and quit losing this $40,000 a year. I just want to get my $1 million back. Well, the problem is that now your asset, and this is very realistic on these numbers here as far as this relationship of the price, the rate going up and doubling, and the price going down 10%. It's a little bit more than that. I'm being very, very conservative with this. You have no equity. You can't sell this, okay? If this is what you're relying on to generate the income to service the debt, you can't sell this, okay? So this is that creates the liquidity crisis. There's no underlying asset value that you can sell to stop the bleeding. So at this point, you have a house of cards that just, and it all happened with one simple move in the interest rates where this supposed free money is gone. Well, thank goodness you can't do this and take it back. You actually could if you were a pretty well-heeled investor. But in the housing market, a lot of the financing laws were changed and the programs just kind of went away on this stuff. So, and it's probably for a good thing, but it's still happening. Instead of happening in the real estate market, it's happening in commercial paper, it's happening with pension funds and a lot of other things. And it'll be very interesting to watch how this happens. So this is a good time to kind of watch your finances and pay attention to what's kind of going on in world affairs a little bit here. I don't think anybody needs to lose sleep over this, but hopefully this explanation explains what some people may have been doing with your pension fund. So anyway, thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson. You can push button, get mortgage professional, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your finances and getting you into the right mortgage in the home of your dreams. Have a great day.